in the very basic systems of education that we go through in the process of becoming citizens. So even at 5 years old, when a kindergartner is being asked to sit and to sit and to sit while he or she is mobilizing the frontal limbs and frontal lobes in order to learn to think, we are training ourselves to identify with this movement in our mind and to ignore the sensations of our body in order to be able to succeed, in order to be a person, in order to be a mature, functioning individual. And those people who can't sit still and identify with their minds and the activity of their minds are considered to be problems who need to be given drugs or special attention and special kinds of treatment because they don't fit in. And so I think this, the basic sort of mind over body training that we get is pervasive. It's everywhere. It's in our educational system. It's in our architecture. It's in the fact that we spend so much time in chairs. It's in our forms of transportation. It's our labor-saving devices, our time-saving devices. They organize ourselves so that we are able to move through a day without really exploring the range or the reach of our bodily motion. Right? We're stilled. Our bodies are stilled. Our senses, our sensory selves are stilled, and we live more and more in virtual worlds that are extensions of our mental world. And so then, you know, you put that education together with the media, and you realize how our addiction to the media and its virtual world reinforces this basic brokenness of our relationship to our bodily self. So we get farther and farther away from the presence in our own sensory selves that enable us to discern what it is that's going to give us those life-enabling experiences we need.
We'll be back in a few minutes to continue our conversation with Kimerer LaMothe. This is Sharron Rose, Smoke and Mirror Radio Hour. And we're back for our special edition of Smoke and Mirrors Radio Show. I'm Sharron Rose, sitting in for Jay Weidner. And tonight we're speaking with Kimerer LaMothe, who some might call a total revolutionary in the realm of religious studies. Her work not only deals with the intellectual aspects of religious studies, but deeply delves into what I would call direct Gnostic experience and the power of the body in understanding, relating to spirit. So, Kimerer.
Yes.
I'd love for you to speak a little about this relationship between spirit and body and the power of the body in spiritual experience.
Yes. I have wrestled with this issue for years now, both in my intellectual and my dance lives. And I am frustrated by the tendency in our tradition, the Western tradition in particular, to speak of the body and think of the body as if it were a thing, an object, a material entity that's either a vessel or a vehicle in which we dwell. And as soon as we start thinking about the body as an object like this, then there becomes this separation opens up between the body and my sense of myself as an I, as having a spirit or a soul, and as being capable of thinking myself out of my body, rising out of my body. And I think this is a really powerful way of imagining and thinking about ourselves as human beings. I think we can do this act of imagination in which we imagine ourselves in and as capable of being distinct from a body. But the fact is that our whole ability to even think this way, feel this way, imagine this way, is all because we are bodies. So part of what I've tried to do in my work is to help us shift our way of thinking and feeling and perceiving our bodily selves. I try not even to use the word the body, right? I try to think about our bodily selves, and I try to think about those bodily selves as movements. And all of a sudden, when we start to open up a sense of our bodily selves as movement, and we can talk about dance here, then we begin to understand that there's a spirituality that's enabled in and inherent in the fact that we are bodily selves. So we begin to appreciate that it's by actually being in our bodily selves and participating consciously in the movement that we are, that we can open up deep reservoirs of wisdom and understanding.
It seems to me that in this culture, in the West, we're particularly alienated from the body. We see these days, even our exercise routines, all this fitness, they're sitting there on machines watching television.
Yes, exactly.
While exercising.
Oh my goodness, I use that example all the time.
And it's a complete dysfunction.
Yes. And it's so ironic because, of course, we want to do the good thing. We want to do the right thing. We want to take care of our bodies. So we think that by exercising them and by imposing these sort of schemas and plans upon them, we are taking care of them. But in reality, we're treating them like pets. Right? They're things which we have to deal with rather than ourselves. So instead of thinking about this kind of the movement of our bodies as who we are, we're thinking about movement as something we have to do in order to keep our bodies tuned as if they were, a car that we needed to take. And so part of what I want to try to say is, what if we reclaimed movement as something that's not just about exercise or fitness or how many miles, how many minutes, how many cycles, but is actually something about opening up a kind of awareness that leads us to kinds of knowledge which we wouldn't have and we can't have any other way.
Well, this brings me to the subject of bliss and pleasure. I feel that we have very little understanding of bliss anymore.
Yes.
And what can we do, in your estimation, to rediscover that bliss and wonder?
Well, I think that, now, when you say bliss, are you thinking about a certain kind of bliss?
To me, bliss has to do with being totally embodied, totally connected with nature, and totally awake and aware.
Yes. In my work, I talk about bringing our senses to life. And what that means to me is dropping into our bodily selves, sort of dropping into them so that we begin to open up in the moment. We feel what we're feeling. We sense what we're sensing. And as we do that, we realize that there are constantly impulses moving through us, impulses of feeling and of thought and intention, wanting to act, desire, moving in and through us. And as we begin to open up and feel and receive these particular impulses, we can learn to move with them. And I feel that for me, when we come to the place that we are actually participating consciously in making movements that are life-enabling for us, aligning with these trajectories of our own becoming, we find that bliss, that deep pleasure of being alive that spreads out from our hearts in this complete and total affirmation of life.
When I was working on 2012, The Odyssey, and spoke to Alberto Villoldo,
yes,
the shaman healer, about his perspective. Oh, now we're going to commercial, so we'll talk about this. The cultural trance, the dream spell, the dominator trance, when we return.
Excellent.
This is Smoke and Mirrors Radio. This is Sharron Rose. We'll be back.